What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 90 of Into the Necrosphere. Today, I am finally joined by one of my most requested guests, Cain Cressall of the Amenta. We finally managed to find a time in the diary that suited us both, and I can tell you right now that this young man does not disappoint. We spoke about a lot of stuff, including the response to Revelator, the new Amenta record, which in my opinion, as I have said many times on this podcast, is an easy contender for one of the best records of 2021. It is available, of course, on Deborah Morty, if you've not yet listened to it. We also got into a bunch of other stuff around vocals, around lyrics, etc. So yeah, really had a fun conversation talking to him, and I think you guys are going to thoroughly enjoy it as well. Maybe a little less controversial than some of the episodes I've put out recently, but very entertaining all the same. After that, I am going to be doing an unsung classic. I'll leave the title of which as a surprise for those of you that stick around beyond the interview, and I will also, as usual, be doing some news. I did want to say thank you very much to everybody who checked out last week's episode that I did with Katie Irizarry of Season of Mist. It was my best first week numbers that I've ever had on any podcast. Saw a nice little bump in the old subscriber numbers. Really big bump in my downloads on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and whatnot. And it just blows my mind that so many people were so positive about it. We did talk about a couple of things there that you kind of always a little bit nervous. Are people going to be offended? I think what it proved to me was that there is a real groundswell of people in this scene that are hungry for open and candid conversations about things that, maybe a lot of other podcasts don't feel very comfortable talking about. And I think, when I look at what Mike Hill is doing on Everything Went Black, and I look at what Alan Averill's doing on Agitators Anonymous, I definitely feel like there's a rising tide and it's on our side. So thank you very much for your support. Again, absolutely blows my mind. And I will try my very best to keep putting out the best possible episodes that I can do week in and week out. I did mention that we're up to episode 90, which means we're on that final stretch to episode 100. I am hoping to be able to make a pretty big announcement about what we're going to do on episode 100 in the next few weeks. But I've got a couple of good things lined up in the interim. So one of them is something a little bit different. I've always been very interested in Woodstock 99 and everything that went on there. Most of you will know that it was one of the biggest clusterfucks of the 20th century as far as music is concerned. And I spoke to my buddy Lo Reichert about that at length and recorded it for a podcast. So I'll be putting that out possibly next week. There's a few other things in the offing. So stick around. If you are not yet subscribed to the show, then do give the subscribe button a stone cold stunner. I had to very quickly think on the spot there of a move. Remember that I put out new episodes every Tuesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, etc. Also, follow the show on social media, and if you really want to rep your colors and your love for Into the Necrosphere, then head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store and pick yourself out a t-shirt, a hoodie, a jogger, or whatever else catches your fancy. I am going to zip my lip and kick this mother off into high gear. This is Cain Cressall of the Amenta. So, dude, welcome to Into the Necrosphere. I feel like this has been a long time in the making. And again, I must apologize for canceling on you at the last minute last week. One of the benefits of interviewing bands in Australia is I can get it done before I start work. One of the shit things about doing a global job is from time to time I have actual calls in Australia that I need to jump on, and that's actually what happened. So sure. My apologies, but you were very gracious, and I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. It's a pleasure to be here.
So how have you been doing, man? I read on your Facebook that you were unwell at the start of the month. You didn't have COVID, did you?
Oh, unwell at the start of the month. I think that was just general we'd just played our first show in 8 years, so we'd not been on stage for that stretch of time, and our comeback show was in Tasmania at a festival called Dark Mofo, which was kind of just a celebration of dark arts in general. So it was a lot of art exhibition stuff, a lot of live performance stuff, music, blah blah blah, and yeah, we were one of the artists that were on the live music bill. So a lot of it was a pretty stressful lead up, with the kind of just, constant sort of, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Because cancellations just happen these days. It's just, at the last minute. So, any booked show, you don't know whether you're going to actually get to play it, because at the last minute you can have the rug pulled out from under you and no more show. So, and with that particular show, our first gig back in 8 years, only 2 weeks before the show, we get a lockdown in Victoria, and our drummer is not allowed to leave Victoria to enter Tasmania. So, with literally 2 weeks before the show, we had to ask another previous member, Robin Stone, if he'd be able to work it into his very busy schedule to learn to sort of, scrub up on the set list with only 2 weeks to get his shit together. And
I was just about to say, which I'd read about, and I was fucking blown away. I mean, it's not like you guys have the most straightforward songs at the best of times. So for him to have picked that up in 2 weeks is fucking nuts.
Thankfully, he seems to have a very good memory. So the songs that he already knew back to front, I don't think would have been much work for him to, bring back. He's a brutal session muso, so he's constantly just learning stuff with no time and tracking it, for albums, with short notice, and some pretty crazy stuff. So he jumped on board. There were only a couple of songs from the new album which he'd not played before. So that was, I think, the main thing. Just going, okay, some material I haven't played before. Let's get this sorted out. And so we pretty much arrived in Tasmania, had a couple of days of just fairly solid rehearsals, and thankfully we somehow managed to actually play the show and go home in one piece. But we did arrive home, myself, and I think both Eric and Tim were both just punished with flu by the time we got home, because I think our immune systems had just been destroyed. So
What was it like being on stage again after 8 years? Because I watched the clip that you posted of Vermin, and firstly, it looked super slick, and it looked like, you all looked very at home on stage. I loved the way that the stage was lit up. I liked the look of the band on stage. I think the show itself came across as, genuinely, I wouldn't say, I hate to use the phrase, but I think actually world class is the best way to say it. But how did it feel being on there? How did you feel? The reception and the energy was from the audience. To kind of talk me through that.
It was a very mixed experience. The fact that you mentioned lighting triggers me to kind of put the word out that the guy responsible for that particular show, Dean, his name is, who runs a production company out of WA, out of Western Australia, called Beat Match Productions. Very easy to find online. He had done a little bit of work with us in the Sia Money music video. He'd done some lighting for one of the main shots of that music video. And yeah, during the process of that, we'd discussed some live stuff, and he'd sort of put it out there that, you know, keep me in mind, you know, for live stuff. And so there was a bit of a discussion before Dark Mofo, and he was very happy to be on board, and we were happy to have him on board. And yeah, he really went the extra mile for the live show. I haven't actually seen that clip, the Vermin clip, but I'm glad it came across okay.
Yeah. No, it looked awesome, and I'm in my old age. I'm getting very pedantic about shows and about how bands come across on stage and things like that. I mean, I've always said I hate being at a show and it feels like I'm a guest in the in the band room or at a rehearsal. I want to see a show. I want to see. It doesn't have to be Rammstein, but I want to see something that's a bit different, and it could be a couple of lights, it could be people wearing masks, it could be people that just look and act the part on stage. But I really thought that I watched it and I thought, fuck, I wish I was there. So that's probably the best compliment I can give you. Yeah,
success. That is the best thing I could possibly hope to hear from you. So that's very cool, very, very cool.
How did you feel? How did you feel, kind of vocally, performance wise? How did that feel for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's been little bits and pieces throughout the last 8 years.
Sorry, bear with me 1 second.
You're right.
There's a delivery due, I think, and naturally the dog has to act like it's DEFCON 1. Yeah. So I'm just going to get her out. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
That is a tough dog. That dog is tough. High five from me.
She doesn't fuck around. She's the sweetest and most spoiled thing on the face of the earth.
Awesome.
But like I said, any stranger, and then it's immediate death.
Especially Uber drivers, you're in trouble.
No, so this is a meat delivery. So all right, I'm gonna get her out of here. I'll be back now.
No worries.
Right, so at least
no casualties.
No casualties. Okay. I suspect if somebody ever tried to break in here, I am 100% sure there would be casualties. She once gave chase to an Amazon driver. I've never seen the guy hop back into his van as quickly as he did. Awesome. But sorry, yeah. So we were talking about on stage, just in terms of the performance, in terms of being there, because I think a lot of people underestimate what it takes out of you physically to do extreme metal vocals in a live setting under those hot lights when like you do, you're moving around a lot. There's a huge amount of kind of physical activity that's going on top of trying to get those vocals out and doing them perfectly. So, yeah. So, we're kind of back to my question, how did that feel for you doing that for the first time in 8 years?
Well, one thing that's on my side is that there have been bits and pieces of live shows scattered throughout that time. So at least there's been just enough of a taste for me to sort of have that sort of reality check every now and then of, ooh, this is actually kind of hard work.
Yeah.
So I'd haven't had enough of those tasters before that show to kind of know, all right, get your shit together. So I was prepared enough to sort of get by. I'm always my own worst critic, so there's a lot of beating myself up as a kind of day-to-day thing anyway. So I don't know if I'm the most reliable person to be getting genuine response from regarding that, but to keep it sort of brief, yeah, I knew that it was. I know it's hard work, and a big part of actually a big thank you needs to be said to the students that I work with in my vocal coaching, which is something that keeps me in check, probably more than the minimal shows that I've been involved with in the last few years, is actually working with vocalists pretty much every day, where from square one with any singers that I'm working with, I figure, look, if you're at the point of reaching out for coaching and guidance, that's in itself, that's kind of says to me that you're not fucking around. You don't genuinely sort of make that step unless you're really quite serious and driven. And so I've been very fortunate with everyone that I've worked with, that it is the case, really driven people. And that's such an infectious thing to be around a lot. And so on top of it, I find myself spouting suggestions and kind of just general vocal maintenance preachings that, as I'm saying them, I'm hearing my own advice at the same time and going.
I was just about to say, it's almost like self-coaching. You're kind of reminding yourself of things.
Absolutely.
And I would imagine you can't do it while you're doing an actual session, but you kind of going, shit, I need to remember to do that myself.
Oh, absolutely. Like sometimes it's while the words are coming out of my mouth, I'm going, ooh, have you been doing that, my friend? And sometimes it's I'm sort of caught up in the session itself, and it's not only when I walk out afterwards that I kind of think, fuck, I just grilled this person about so and so, but am I that vigilant myself? And one of the things I push from square one is that, okay, look, if we're here and we're actually doing this, let's set you up as a touring artist regardless of whether you are or not. Because there's nothing worse than playing, bedroom band guy for years and years, and then all of a sudden an opportunity pops up to do a bunch of consecutive shows, and you have absolutely no concept of vocal maintenance. So that's something I push very early, and thankfully, for the people that I work with, I've been able to hear myself preaching this stuff for long enough to sort of go, okay, our first show back in 8 years, probably better get my shit together. So the show was great. It was very strange. It was the first time we've ever played in a theatre. So it was actually, we were playing in a theatre, which the Amenta has not done before. So that's our first experience playing to a seated audience, which was very strange when the crowd engagement is such an important part of what we do. Connecting with the people who are excited about extreme music, where it's a room full of just these total extreme music nerds just kind of frothing on each other's energy, and all of a sudden that's put in a theatre format, and it's a bit of a how's this gonna work kind of thing. It was very strange, but at the same time it was cool just because it was something different. It wasn't the same old thing, it was something different. And one thing that was actually quite fun for me was just noticing some of the people that were there, because it was a really mixed crowd. Like, this festival is a dark art festival, so there are a lot of people that have booked full festival passes to be involved with everything, even though they may not be into heavy music. They're there to see the artwork and maybe just stumble across something new that they haven't experienced before. So there's this mixed crowd of people that are there just to sit out of curiosity, essentially. I wonder what this is going to be about. Apparently, there's some extreme bands playing in this theatre. I wonder what's going to happen. And then mixed amongst that, we've got people that actually know what they're in for and have specifically booked tickets to that show because they want to be part of it. And those people were. It was so much fun even though we didn't have that connect that we normally would have in a live environment. I could see them kind of losing their shit in their seats, going, "What?" Like they were. It was weirder for them than it was for us. Like,
yeah,
they just wanted to explode, and I could see them wriggling around and kind of losing their shit and not being able to, do the regular sort of connect. So it was very strange, but it was cool at the same time. And yeah, we were just kind of prepared enough to be able to deliver the goods, and had a fantastic team working with us. So Ian Redman was looking after our sound, and we lights were looked after. Our good mate Swanee was looking after the video production side of things. It was a real fantastic sort of coming together of old mates, I guess. And also Tim, that was Tim's first time back with the band in the live entity since, I don't know when the last show was that he was actually behind keys and stuff. It must have been 2011. 2000.
I was just about to say, I thought it was from memory when I spoke to him. I think it was 2011.
Right. Okay. Yep, yeah, that'd be it. It was definitely 10 or 11. So yeah, if there we go. So that was super cool having the old sort of gang back together, and Robin on drums, even though it was a bizarre last minute kind of thing. We'd done a lot of great things with, we'd done some great tours with him. So it was as much as it was awful that we'd been collectively meeting in Adelaide for rehearsals with Dave, and then at the last minute he gets told, "Oh, by the way, you're not playing the show." It was bullshit. Like the fury levels were high, but yeah, to just have this random sort of, "Oh, we're playing this show with Robin again," that was really fun as well. So there's some wins, with the losses as well. So
are you going to take that production and that whole crew out with you when you go on tour with Earthrot?
To some extent, yes. Ian will be looking after the audio side of things. He knows what we do. He knows us back to front. So, and he just kind of dropped in there. I think we had one rehearsal that he was actually at, and then he's mixing us live the next night. And he just kind of slotted in like no time had passed. The shows I think we have probably not best to ask me about this side of things, because I'm so focused at the moment on just holding my bits and pieces together. That's the only thing I'm 100% on. I know Ian's doing that, doing sound, and from memory, Shane Thompson, who was doing the video side of things for that first gig back, he's going to be doing lights. So just and he'd been doing lights for us for years. So I think there might be a collaborative effort between himself and Dean Gratwick, who had done the lights for us at Dark Mofo, to sort of just touch base. This is where we're at, and the baton was passed. But yeah, it's these playing Dark Mofo. I've got to say that first gig back, one of the highlights must have been, to be honest, the actual people that were involved. So all of these people that I'm talking about were just as significant as any band members or any of the bands that we're playing with on top of it. Like, this was just, yeah, there was a real magic between these amazing personalities, amazing professionals. So yeah, it's the kind of thing where we're just all on the same page, and I'll always be looking forward to working with any of these people. Any opportunity where we find each other on the same at the same venue, and even whether we're in the same project or not. Like, if you're doing sound for the band that's playing after us or before us, or if you're doing lights for so and so or whatever it is, it's just exciting to connect with these people again, because we are very fortunate to have found some really amazing professionals. And
like I said, you could definitely tell there was that synergy, and that connection on stage as well, just because of how, even just looking at the video, it just looks like, everybody has their shit together. But I wanted to ask you about the vocal coaching, as you've touched on it. What kind of originally, got you into that racket? And I guess the best place to ask, because there was a sentence on the website that I thought was interesting. You mentioned that, I think this was the line. So, had I been given the guidance I'm now able to provide, I believe I would have progressed a lot further in a much shorter time. So I guess the first question is, when and how did the student become the master?
That's a very easy question to answer.
Yeah.
Very easy question. And it was, without doubt, I was one of those kids that just, at 15, just realized there's nothing else I want to be involved with except for having a mic in my face and connecting with an audience. It's writing, recording, performing. That's all I want to do. So I gave myself no backup plan, which I am, to be honest, I'm regretting now.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy what I do, so that's something. But yeah, I was banging my head against a wall through my teenage years up until whenever it was. It was 2009. 2009 was, I'd been playing in bands since I was 15, playing parties initially, and then playing shows all over the place, and from one band to another band to another band. And it was in 2009 that my West Australian band, Malignant Monster, I'd already had a connection with Eric in the Amenta, as he'd sort of looked after me in another band I'd played with called Pathogen years earlier during an East Coast, Australian East Coast run of shows. There was one show where he'd put us up for the night, let us crash at his place. So zip forward to 2009, the Amenta are playing some shows in Western Australia, and I've been, surprise, hit up, do you reckon we could crash at your place for a couple of days? And of course I said, yeah, hey, we look after each other. That's what we do, underground arseholes playing in these, horrendous, horrific, extreme metal bands. Someone's got to look after us. So it's you and me. You know the story. I'm sure you know it well. And so the guys stayed with me for a couple of nights. One of the shows, my West Australian band, my local band, Malignant Monster, were booked to play one of the shows. So we played the show. It all went very well. And I don't know too much about what the story was prior to me joining, but I get the impression that Jared, who tracked vocals for the non-album, was reaching a point where things weren't feeling like they're working to some extent. What that was, I don't know. I get along very well with Jared and Mark, who sung on Acasis. So it doesn't really interest me. For one reason or another, things were fizzling out, and the band had a North American tour and a North American / Canadian tour booked, 38 shows in 40 days. And Jared had pulled the pin with a couple of months before this tour. So the guys got in touch with me and said, "Hey, do you think you could is there any chance you could do what you're doing with Malignant Monster with the Amenta?" And I said, I think that's quite possible. Send me the set list. Send me give me the songs I'd need to learn, and I'll see what I think of it. So they sent me the songs, and immediately I just went, "Yep, let's do this." But at the same time, before that, 2009, I think up till that point, in full honesty, the most amount of shows I'd done in a row would have been about 5. Well, it was 100% 5 shows. That's the maximum that I'd done in a row up to that point. So I said yes, but in the back of my mind, there's also this, but how the fuck are you actually going to do that? So it was that was the real catalyst for, I need to figure out what the fuck I'm doing. Like I need to actually start from scratch and learn my instrument, because there's no fucking way I'm going to get on that tour with my fingers crossed, because it's the worst feeling. Like any musician will tell you that one of the worst feelings is going on stage with your fingers crossed. Like, oh, I hope I get by tonight. And there was no way I was going to leave that room for error. So I just went really hard. I never had that kind of guidance around me to go to. As a kid, growing up, that wasn't really an option. Like if you want guitar lessons, if you want drum lessons, sure, you can find someone quick enough. But for what I was doing, that wasn't something that was an easy find. Maybe it was available, I don't know. But, regardless, I'm at this point, I've got to make this happen. And so I started researching vocal coaches from all over the world, ordering in books, ordering in videos, subscribing to different things, blah, blah, blah. So that was the real start. And once the ball got rolling, it became a complete obsession, like a crazy obsession. So I was just trying to absorb as much as I could before going out there, and to sort of on top of this sort of new experience of doing such at that time was a vast amount of shows. On top of it, I contracted swine flu 3 shows.
Oh my God.
So this was, the peak of the whole H1N1 hype, media hype. There was a big, this is a thing in the US at the moment. You've got to go get your shots and make sure that you protect yourself from this flu. And so all of us, of course, were just like, holy shit, how's our timing? Yeah, let's make sure we do whatever we can to avoid, falling into this trap. So we all got our H1N1 shots, and then show 3, we're in New York, and I came down with the most sort of horrendous flu I've probably ever had. And I've had some pretty rough man flus. Like the man flu is a real thing.
I was about to say it's one of the worst.
And this one was a mongrel, an absolute mongrel. Yeah. The drummer ended up catching it as well, despite his despite our efforts against catching it and vaccinating ourselves against it. We ended up brutally sick and did not miss a show. As a matter of fact, the after the New York show, we ended up driving to Canada, and I think it was like 8 to 10 hour drive. Had to go through the border, where you stopped for 3 hours for them to go through all of your shit to sign off on whether they let you through or not. And we got to Montreal, and I ended up in emergency because I was just so rat shit. It was awful. So I spent the majority of the day in emergency, in and out of sleep, being fed pills and blood tests being taken and this and that, just kind of in this swirling horror. And then at some point I get a call from one of the guys in the band saying, hey, how far are you from the venue? I have no idea what planet I'm on, let alone which venue we're playing at. And I had a chat with the doctor, and they said, look, we're not allowed to keep you here. We can't force you to stay. So you are technically free to go, but we would highly advise that you maybe spend 2 weeks in bed and just don't go to work at all. I don't know what you do, but just don't go to work for at least 2 weeks. Like your body needs to. And I just kind of said, yeah, no problem. And then got a taxi to the venue and had, I think it was about 20 minutes to sort of actually get ready to go on stage when we got there. And it was one of the best shows of that tour.
I was going to ask you, like, how, like that New York show as an example, how did you, feeling as shit as you must have felt, how did you make it through that show? What was
that show actually wasn't that bad. It was really after that show, that exertion of going, okay, I know I feel quite awful, but I've got to give it, everything I've got. It was afterwards. It was that drive, that 8 or 10 hour drive in an 11-seater van with 9 dudes plus gear in it. That was the real horror. Wasn't the show. Yeah. And that's when things started really degrading, like going on stage and pushing that out, even though you recognize that your body is kind of saying, hey, might be
not so fast.
Yeah. It was playing that show that really kind of put me in the ground. So, but then, to play that show in Canada, I rocked up with 20 minutes to go on, and the guys were all very, very supportive and kind of like, hey, I didn't know what I had. And to be honest, names for shit just don't mean anything. It was just a shit flu. I was struggling. And the guys are kind of around me going, look, if you hit a moment where you say, this, I cannot do this, I need to actually lay down, you just do what you got to do. If you're happy to walk out there and see what happens, we'd prefer for you to give it a crack and see what happens than just not do it at all. And I was on the same page. I'd rather try and then walk away than not try at all. So, so I went out there with that mentality, and something just kind of snapped, and it's like I had to sort of dig deeper to find something to pull out to keep the ball rolling. And in that sort of digging deeper, something came out that may have even scared the guys on stage with me, because we walked off stage and it was just this kind of general, what the fuck was that kind of thing. And so yeah, a blessing and a curse, I guess. And it was a big learning curve, and showed me exactly how important vocal maintenance is, and which is why I preach it so hard to everyone that I work with. Is there is no way I would have been able to push through that first kind of trial by fire without that regimented attention to looking after my instrument. And so many vocalists overlook that and think, but at the end of the day, I'm just kind of shouting into a mic. So it's, what difference does it make? But that tour would not have got further than 3 shows had it not been for that attention. So yeah.
And one thing that I was actually just looking at it a second ago, because you were mentioning at the time there weren't really all that many vocal coaches around. I mean, I still feel like there's not a huge amount, but I mean, at that time, there was basically Melissa Cross, and that was about it, right? Did you look at them?
Exactly. Not exactly. There's people out there. Melissa Cross was the first to really market what she's doing specifically to a metal audience.
Yeah, and actually, and that's what I meant, like specifically for extreme music, because I would imagine if you go into, an opera vocal coach and you go, listen, I'd like to just show you what I can do.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, a lot of the discipline that I bring to what I do is classic stuff that has been used in opera for a long time. And likewise, Melissa Cross, a lot of the bits and pieces that she kind of draws on with what she does is tried and true stuff. The thing is, this instrument is, even though our approach to the expression that we're bringing across with more extreme kind of, modern heavy metal music is a far cry from the world of opera, the same rules apply.
Yeah.
Because it's not like we're using different instruments, we're using the same instrument. So particularly as far as maintenance is concerned, it's the same. It's not any different. It's really technique, which is the thing that's different with what we're kind of doing now with this extreme stuff. Yes, of course, the technique is different. And Melissa Cross, I'm not sure what she is teaching now. I did touch on the stuff that she was doing with her Zen of Screaming stuff. And a lot of that revolves around fry, which is, as far as I'm aware, it's a term that she coined, and now it's kind of like this general accepted term, fry screaming. So that was kind of what she was revolving around with her approach to metal kind of, extreme vocality, which is, it absolutely has its place. You can't ignore it. It's there. There are bands that do this, that use this technique exclusively, and it is the least kind of laborious approach to extreme sounding vocals.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's not the only technique, and there are a lot of variations of screaming and growling that are happening in the world of extreme music, that there is an approach to it to make it safe, to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
So yeah, fry screaming is not something I've been particularly. It's not something I've ever gravitated towards. It's something I was mucking around with as a kid, because I couldn't, at that early sort of stage of trying to figure out, how are these guys doing this, making these noises. You sort of play around with, I would play around with that stuff and go, oh, okay, I think I'm making sense of this. But somewhere along the line, there are certain bands that I was going, there's no way that they're just doing that to create that sound. How the fuck are they doing that? And so you need to explore further and further and start connecting the dots between these different ways of manipulating your voice. And yeah, as a kid, I was just banging my head against the wall, losing my voice once a week, where I'd be going into a rehearsal room on a Friday for the night, or for 2 nights, and then having pretty much no voice the next day, and it taking the week to slowly rebuild my voice before I was ready for the next rehearsal. So as a kid, it was just reckless abandon. And the mentality that the guys that I fucking admire, they must just do this over and over and over again, and it's only through that just destroying yourself that you become that strong, that you can sort of carry it off live. As it turns out, it doesn't work that way. If you keep destroying your voice, it doesn't. I mean, to some extent, it has to adjust to the way that it's being used. So if you're fortunate like I was, I didn't destroy my voice. It copped a hiding. It did get a hiding, but I was there was enough resilience for it to be able to sort of get by and adjust. But it's not the way you want to go about it. Just destroying your voice and then just seeing how well it takes it is not the right way about it. There are really simple and practical steps towards just having the right angle towards what you're trying to get across, that you can bypass all that trial and error. That trial and error is just insane. Like what you were referring to was basically my trial and error of just years of trying, I guess this is the way it is because I didn't know any better. But and most people don't, because it's not a readily available. There aren't readily available known sources of practical ways to go about this stuff. Melissa is a great teacher, and there is something to be said for the stuff that is discussed in her videos. But if I was to purely go by that, I think I'd have to limit my approach to a certain realm of techniques. But the way that I work, there are too many things in vocality and music that excite me to keep it to a certain area, I guess.
Yeah.
There's just
It's interesting that you mention that, because one of the things that's immediately noticeable on Revelator is the degree to which your vocals have evolved, and so many of the new things and the new elements that you've kind of brought in. And one comment I'll make before I ask you a question, I will definitely say, I feel like in you, and this is a very big compliment, so brace yourself. I think I feel in you, Amenta has truly found their voice, and it's no disrespect to Jared or the previous vocalist. And as everybody knows, I've been a huge fan of this band ever since Carcass came out. But I do feel like you kind of have a voice, and then you have a front man. And I feel like Amenta has got their front man and their actual voice now, as opposed to just somebody who's in the vocal booth. You're kind of it's awesome to see, because I think that stands out so much on Revelator, because Revelator to me is the first Amenta record where I feel like your vocals are kind of leading the songs, and the things that you're doing is kind of shaping where the music goes and where the record goes. How much creative leeway are you allowed, when it comes to, particularly when it came to recording this record, to kind of come in with your own ideas, do your own thing? And was there ever a point where you came up with an idea that the rest of the band kind of went, I'm not so sure about that?
There's definitely, I wouldn't go that far. There probably hasn't been anything so standoffish. It's more the whole the production was such a slow, progressive, churning evolution of ideas. So, and I mean, take it back to the Void EP that we'd done in 2010 or 11. That was, even back then, it was kind of this, and I know that when Tim chatted with you about this stuff, he was very open about it and said, like, fuck, when we kind of started, we had a very solid idea of what is supposed to, how this is supposed to be, and what is allowed to sort of come through. And it was very strict, and we have to do this and we have to do that. And then through the progression of writing and playing shows and working with different vocalists, they've kind of over time going, shit, maybe we're limiting ourselves if we keep too stern about what fits this project. Maybe we should sort of open it up a little bit and just see what happens. And at the end of the day, if something is fucking terrible, then you got to say something. But maybe we should sort of just see what happens. So there was some progression through Non, and then through with Void, me coming into the equation. That I think partly because we had a rapport beforehand already, and they'd seen me do what I do in another entity, and there were certain things about what I was doing that resonated with them. They kind of thought, let's just see what happens. So with Void, it was, let's work on some stuff. Here's a song. What's the first thing that pops into your head? We're curious, kind of thing. So it was just okay. And I had a listen, and I'd had the songs that we'd been playing live up to that point very deeply sort of, ingrained. So there were a lot of elements about what this band stands for that I was deeply connected with and had an understanding of. And so I just followed my heart with just purely bouncing with the music. I'm hearing this for the first time. This is what makes sense to me. And I would kind of put that out there, track a rough demo, send it through. And the song Void, I remember it was a very kind of, it was a memorable kind of response, because I think they were kind of surprised to hear something so almost jarring against what the band had previously been known for, but it also made sense at the same time. So they kind of think, maybe we're onto a good thing here. Let's play around with more stuff. So it's always been a very playful kind of working relationship, where I never feel concerned about anything that makes sense to me. If it makes sense to me, throw it out there and see what happens. And you can imagine, over the course of 8 years of working on one production, the songs, the bare bones of the songs were written early on in the process. So it was kind of these bare bones, and then bit by bit, doing a vocal demo, and then all of a sudden, oh shit, this just feels like this verse should actually go for longer now that I'm hearing some vocals there. It feels like there's space for this to go for longer, or I thought this was a generous amount of time for this section, but now it just feels like we're overdoing it, so we'll chop it down and blah blah blah. It was just this very kind of action reaction, natural, organic kind of process. And so usually, as far as ideas that are brought to the table, it's a tricky thing to even discuss, because it was such a long time for one album. So you'd have to be specific about a particular song or something.
I was going to ask you actually about Void, because you mentioned, they kind of said, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Do you, when you say that, and this is really the fan in me asking this question, is that vocals and lyrics? Did you write the lyrics to that track as well?
No, Void is that was something that Tim had sitting there. I was given the song, and here's a lyric sheet. And when Tim presents a lyric sheet for a song, it's a lyric sheet. It's different each time, but in some occasions, it's a lyric sheet that wasn't written with the actual song in mind. It was more, in some cases, it was a lyric sheet that he'd written because it was stuff that it just was naturally coming out, and he was scribbling it down. And then maybe a song gets written, and he goes, you know what? The general vibe of the sentiment of these lyrics is something that I think would work with the sound of this song.
Yeah.
So whether that was the case with Void or not, I'm not sure. That's too long ago for me to remember.
I asked that specifically because I've got a big thing about how lyrics are written, and also how lyrics are presented. So the rhythm in the voice, like I constantly complain about the typewriter vocals, especially in death metal, but you get it in some black metal as well.
Absolutely.
What I think is absolutely magic in terms of how it's written and in terms of how you deliver it. On Void, there's a line, or there's a passage. The brightest light will gutter quicker. The wax will stifle the wick as we burn. For the yearning ember, there is nobility in flame. For the faltering fire, there is only shame. I mean, that is fucking genius, absolute genius. Yeah. And it's to me like it's a real high watermark for the band. And I remember when I heard that song the first time, I just like holy shit, I did not see that coming. And the way that as I said, the way it's delivered is so good. I mean, the bit of melody in your vocals, the way you kind of, you didn't soften your vocals, but you kind of take a different inflection when you're delivering that line. But it's just magical. It's absolutely magical. Hence why, as I said, I'm kind of asking that very much as a fan. But I've always wanted to know how did that come up, because I love that piece of that song so much.
Yeah, that was there was a lyric sheet of how much was on there. I couldn't tell you. I'm not sure. Sometimes Tim's a very prolific poet, so he's constantly scribbling. He's constantly just scribbling stuff. He's very prolific like that. So he might assemble an entire page of just verses, these sections and sections and sections of lines and lines and lines, and say, I think the sentiment of this stuff will really work with the sound of this song. And so I'll kind of go, okay. And I'll, in my studio, sometimes I may have demoed vocal patterns and melodies and things without any lyrics, and now I've been presented with some lyrics that I can find ways of manipulating them to sit with the stuff that's going on in my head. Or sometimes there'll be the material there to work with, and I'll kind of be spitballing straight from that, and not with any particular structure of how I'm supposed to be using it. I sit with Tim's lyrics like a tool, like this ammunition that's sitting there, and my creative side is just is engaged with figuring out which patterns and vocal sounds and melodies are going to complement the music in a way that I feel makes sense and has some kind of potency. And I'll be there with my ammunition, weaving them into my my ideas. So it's like this kind of there's a flow there with it. We've been doing it for long enough that it's a very relaxed kind of free form working relationship. And so sometimes we may end up with a lot of stuff chopped out that was originally scribbled in there, but Tim is never attached to any of the stuff he does. He does the stuff he does. His scribbling is probably a therapeutic form of expression for him. So he's just, scribbling away, expressing himself, getting it out of here onto a page, and that's enough. Whatever becomes from this stuff moving forward is, open to whatever happens. And I get involved and start experimenting with it, and we end up with whatever we end up with. So hopefully that.
So as a student of the vocal game, who are other vocalists, particularly in extreme music, that you admire and that you think are, kind of world-class people that you look up to?
That is a very challenging question, because my biggest inspirations are so very, very vast, and more of them than not are not part of the world of extreme music. They're more rock guys. So I mean,
include those, because I'd be curious to hear that as well. I have a hunch I know who one is, but I'm not going to say anything unless you mention it.
Well, it's okay. So blues and hard rock, or just rock in general, was what shaped me. Like my obsession with music and vocals was based around these rock gods that just made my head spin as a kid. And that is, and you know, these are bands that I still listen to all the time, even though I'm not actively performing this type of stuff. It's just constantly, you know, a source of excitement for me, and reminds me why I do this stuff. You know, you can fall into a real slump and then just all of a sudden listen to a song by that band that made you excited about music to begin with, and it all just comes to life again. You go, fuck, that's right, music's the best, and let's do more stuff, you know. So to the guys, the names, it's really hard. I don't know where to start. I hate this question. I struggle with this question. But yeah, okay. So David Coverdale from Whitesnake is a massive inspiration for me, at the same time as Alice Cooper is an enormous inspiration. Bon Scott and Brian Johnson, both in their own with their own approach and expression. AC/DC was an enormous inspiration for me, and still is. Like, all these bands are still bands I listen to all the time. Where do I Led Zeppelin, it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of incredible female vocalists that I really get tons of inspiration from, ideas from, and really get deeply sort of affected by their expressions. And yeah, so particularly in the metal world, with guys, the chicks get left out of it a lot of the time, to be honest. Like, there are a lot of amazing, and this is something that goes into my vocal coaching as well, is that a lot of people that I work with, I find them very trapped in a certain headspace, and often with guys, a great thing to bring into that equation is say, okay, here is a female singer who I have learned so much from in my time studying their music. I want you to really just meditate on this song and experiment with trying to figure out how she's doing what she does, and then come back to me in a week, and I want to see what you've picked up. And the results are phenomenal, because one of the things that we so often get trapped in is mimicry with the same sex of, you know, where we're coming from. So guys learning vocals of the guys that they admire, and just working hard at mimicry and figuring out those little nuances of this thing and that thing. You try doing that with a chick, and you can't. It's harder, because the biological makeup of their instrument is so different to yours that you find yourself getting confused between whether they're in falsetto or in true voice, and what approach is she taking to get that effect. It can be mind-boggling sometimes. So pushing yourself into, like, John Napolitano from the band Concrete Blonde is like one example of a female vocalist who I've just been worshipping since I was a kid. And Diamanda Galas is another vocalist who's just mind-blowing. Tori Amos is a female vocalist I've been deeply embedded in a lot of her stuff as well. Like, there are so many amazing female vocalists that aren't necessarily even involved with extreme music. That are doing shit that's wilder than some of the biggest names in extreme music now. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
There's some.
What I love about my favorite female vocalists is the ability to communicate subtlety to the degree that they're able to. So an immediate example that comes to mind, I don't know whether you're familiar with PJ Harvey. I'm pretty confident that you will be.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's an extraordinarily beautiful song that she does called A Beautiful Feeling with Tom York. And there's a moment, I think it's the third verse where the line is, and when I watch you move, the way she kind of just subtly changes her, the not the key, but kind of the, I'm not going to be able to use the right phrasing here, but you know what I mean? Like the depth of how she pitches the word move is just, every time I hear it, I get goosebumps. It is just absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah.
Chelsea Wolfe is another female who I think is phenomenal in the way that she can communicate emotion, and she seems to be at her absolute best when she's doing it in a more subdued song. So this, off her last record, American Darkness, again, there's a line there where she says, "It seems my old ways are kicking in." It's so fucking good. It's like, it rips at your heart when you hear it. You mentioned the word affecting. That was one of the biggest things that struck me about Revelator, is how much more emotion you were conveying with your voice. And I feel like that's really at the heart of what I love so much about the record. Great example being on Silent Twin, that line where you say, we'll increase with subtraction, but combine zero sum. I mean, that's on a par with the passage out of Void that I mentioned before, where it's just, you hear it for the first time. It's so unexpected, but it's like I said, it's affecting. It sets an atmosphere. It's extreme in its own way, but yeah, just absolutely stunning. But now, it's particularly now that you mentioned the female vocalist piece, I can kind of see where some of your, where you might get some of your inspiration from, because it's that kind of subtlety, that nuance, that just changing the tone of it slightly, and the net impact is exponential.
Well, a key word in this equation is vulnerability. Vulnerability is such a significant part of this, and so many of the most affecting performances are the ones where the performer is really letting go of everything and becoming completely just in tune with the sentiment of the line or the whatever. And vulnerability is something that is really hard to learn, particularly if you're very, very hardwired as a non. A lot of people struggle with it. It's not, and in a lot of cultures, it's not a welcomed thing. It's particularly with in Australia, the generation that I grew up with and the generation before me, there's this real closure of a wall against vulnerability. I'm never vulnerable. I'm presenting this kind of expression of who you are as I'm always in control. I'm never concerned about anything. I've got my shit together, and letting go of all of that and being honest with what's existing in here is such an incredible player in the music that connects with people.
Yeah.
And makes you actually stop and go, what the fuck is this? I need to know what this person's singing about, because this is killing me for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I need to know who is this and what are they on about? Like, as a kid, I used to find that a lot. I'd hear things and go, "Whoa, what is that? That I don't even know what they're singing about, but it's just killing me for some reason. I have to know who this artist is and what the lyrics are." That's something that seems to have sort of died away a little bit, at least in my own experience. It's not as much like that anymore. It's like I have to really, it's like progressively over the years, I have to dig deeper and dig harder to find those things that make my head spin and ask, what is this person on about? I have to know. And especially with more extreme music, it seemed to just, in the 80s, it was more about expression and experimentation and just unleashing honesty. And it, whether that is fury or whether it's terror and genuinely expressing fear through or vulnerability, it's changed. Things have become a lot more. It's like things have become a lot more clinical over the years, and a lot more about production and a lot more about other things that are distractions from the real point of why we're doing this stuff. And yeah, I guess, yeah, my point is vulnerability plays such a big role. And like PJ Harvey, for example, since you bring her up, is a great example of a performer that's able to, and it's not always a front and center player in the equation, but when it is.
Yeah.
Knows how to let that come out and how to sort of harness that. It's real magic.
There are without a doubt also levels to that. People that are absolute masters. Mark Lanigan is another one that comes to mind. I remember seeing him at I think the ULU chapel in London. It's the only show that I've actually literally I was wiping tears away as he was singing. I can't remember what song it was, but just fucking phenomenal. And again, I think it's I think you're absolutely spot on with what you said about vulnerability. I think it's that ability to communicate it in a way that's not overt, it's not in your face. It's just nakedly there, and so that's why you subconsciously you connect with it, and that's what hits you. Another good example, non-metal example, Suspirium by Tom York that he recorded for the Suspiria remakes soundtrack.
Wow.
Incredible song. And like I'm not necessarily even the biggest fan of Tom York's voice, but he just nails it on that song. It's like, obviously he wrote it, but that's the greatest vehicle for his voice to sound as good as it could possibly sound.
Wow. Okay. Mark Lanigan, I had a similar experience watching him supporting Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. That's the only time I've been able to see him live was at one show where he was playing in Western Australia, supporting the Bad Seeds. Amazing. I'll never forget that show. Fucking unreal. So I'm totally with you as far as that goes. And Tom York, it's so funny because the Suspiria remake is something that I had zero interest in because I'm very picky when it comes to horror. Well, film in general, I'm very picky, but particularly with horror. And I was probably pissed off when I heard that there was a remake of Suspiria being put into production. And so I just pretended like it didn't exist and ignored it for years. And it just took bit by bit, one person after another person over the course of many years of people saying, have you seen the remake? And I say, no, why would I bother? And they say, I think you'll really like it. And I'm like, fuck off with that shit. I don't want to hear that shit. Fuck off.
Yeah.
And eventually there was that one person too many where I just clicked and went, all right, that's it. I'm going to fucking watch it. And so I watched it and I was just floored by it. I was so...
I think it's stunning.
So happy, and just, this is nothing like what I'd feared it would be. This isn't just some half-assed money maker of let's take something that's well known and try and get something out of it. And it wasn't some piss weak rehashed approach. It was actually so genuine, and so you could tell that there was such a respect for the film, for the story, and they've really taken that on board with such respect. And every detail about that film I was so impressed with. And the soundtrack was one of those things.
Yeah, I thought the soundtrack was amazing. And Johnny Greenwood, who's Tom's bandmate in Radiohead, he's responsible for my favorite score of all time, which is the score for There Will Be Blood.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but yeah.
Oh, mate, if you're not familiar with it, for sure listen to it. And also There Will Be Blood, greatest movie of all time. If you've never seen it, make sure you watch it.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to scribble that on my whiteboard right now. There.
Oh, yeah, no. Let me know what you think when you've seen it as well. I did a podcast episode with Mike Hill from Tombs on it for his Everything Went Black podcast. I'm obsessed with that movie, and I have been ever since I first watched it. I remember seeing it in the cinema and sitting through the credits and just stunned. I went back by myself to watch it 2 more times, and I've probably seen it about 50 or 60 times since. It's incredible.
That is so great. That's sorted my weekend movie view.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. And you'll see what I mean about the score. The score is such a central part to the film because it is so well written, and it kind of propels the story forward, because there is a story, but it's very much a character sketch. So it's not something where whenever somebody asks me what my favorite movie is, and I say There Will Be Blood, and they say, okay, what's it about? I'm like, it's a guy who discovers oil, and he's a horrible person, and he becomes worse as he becomes richer. And that's basically the movie. Awesome. But you'll see what I mean when you watch it. It's absolutely fantastic. I wanted to ask you, the sort of rapturous reception that Revelator has had, again, having been a fan of this band since the very beginning, I was not expecting it to be as positive as it was. I can imagine this must have come as a bit of a surprise to all of you as well. I kind of, especially given the degree to which you creatively really let yourselves out there. How do you feel about how people have received the record?
Absolutely. I would agree with that. We were all surprised because we really did get to a point where it's like we really did let go of ideas of what we're supposed to be, and kind of gave it ourselves full license to genuinely follow our heart and be able to say in ourselves as we're coming up with an idea, like whether it's one of the guys working on a handful of riffs to potentially turn into a song, to ask themselves, would this work as an Amenta song? And it's like the boundaries kind of got pushed a lot further apart than what they'd been previously, and say yes to things that feel like they are genuine and make sense. And this doesn't fit, this riff or this vocal line or this whatever may not fit the structured, preconceived ideas of what this band is about in the past, but you know what?
Yeah,
right now,
the dictionary definition of the band.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself: Am I am I feeling like I want to say yes to this because I'm being lazy and just want to go with whatever I come up with? Or am I going with it because I genuinely feel like this is an important idea and this is significant to what we're collectively trying to build? And if the answer is yes, then pursue it and see what happens. And sometimes it might move forward a little bit and then kind of dissipate and become a nuisance, and you sort of wash it away. But if it doesn't, then aren't you happy we followed that story, you know? So there was a lot more openness with the writing side of things, but at the same time, this was no effort to go, okay, we've spent this many years as an bash you in the face, extreme kind of mechanical gluttonous energy, and that's gotten us nowhere. So let's write some other stuff that maybe someone else will like. There was no premeditated discussions about it. It was really just, and it was an independent thing between all of us at the same time. We never had a discussion about any of that. It was just, here's an idea, and then we'd, like maybe Eric would structure a handful of riffs that he'd been really just meditating on and experimenting with, and it's early stages stuff, and he'd put it out there and gone, I don't know what they're going to say because this isn't something normally I'd go out of my way to do, but it just feels really right, and I'll see what happens. And immediately the response is, I'm excited about this because this has just given me an idea for this that I can bring to the party for this arrangement. And it was just generally the way. I think we're all just we've found ourselves in the same headspace, the same place in our lives where we just want to drop the expectations and be completely true to ourselves and see what happens. And we were really expecting the opposite. We thought, a lot of people might disown us with this album, as they have with every release the band has done. So it's not it was something to be afraid of. It was just a general expected thing. Like, every time the band does a new album, it upsets everyone that liked the last album because it's never the same thing. So we're kind of expecting that. But at the same time, hopeful that someone will get a kick out of it because it's taken a while to birth this thing. So I hope someone likes it, but you never know. It might just be absolutely hated. So we're prepared for worst case scenario and just more happy that we've pushed that thing out and we can move on to something else. I think we were just relieved that we'd finally finished a chapter, and we're just like, oh, okay, thank fuck. That was more grueling than any of us could have anticipated, but it's finished. Hopefully someone likes it. If not, that's also cool because it's out. It's out of my body. So the response was truly a surprise and just amazing. It's always amazing if one person is if a song resonates with one person enough for them to feel like they need to make a connection with you and express that's a fucking incredible thing in itself. And so for it to be anything beyond that, it's a bonus, really.
I definitely know what you mean about you guys feeling nervous about it, because I got that off Tim when I spoke to him as well. There was definitely, you could tell he was excited about the music, but you could also tell there was some trepidation around how people are going to receive it, how they're going to take it. He just kind of said a couple of times, and it's very different.
Yeah.
But I think it feels like a very authentic expression of who the Amenta is in 2021. And I think that's part of why it's successful. There's never a sense that you're trying to cater for a particular audience or you're trying to cater to your audience. There's just a sense that this is what was in you at the time, and now it has been externalized on a CD or on an MP3 file or on a vinyl.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, one thing you've brought them up a couple of times, and in the run up to this interview, I went back and I listened to a couple of records. Malignant Monster. I think that yours in Murder must be, now that I've properly, and I counted myself under this group as well, properly listened to it, it must be one of the most undiscovered or under-discovered death metal gems to have been put out ever, mate.
Wow.
It's really, really good. Are you still in contact with those guys? Is that something that you would ever do another record for at some point in the future?
I'm still good friends with those guys. It was just a very difficult project to carry. It was, I think, largely because it was always my baby that I was very particular about, and it was a revolving door of lineups, and just even towards the end when we finally had a live entity that was, this is kind of it was like a dream lineup of musos. These are the perfect guys for this story to really come alive. But it was still a difficult thing where it felt like I was really dragging this thing up a hill, and the other guys were just being very cool about being part of it and hanging in there. But everyone was kind of just itching to not be trapped in this thing. At least that's the feeling that I had about it. So I think it was a relief, even not necessarily was it a relief to begin with, because when I'd first kind of went, all right, this is being put to bed now, it wasn't received well. No one was excited about, driving that nail in the coffin. But I think everyone's probably become a lot freer and felt better about what they're doing moving forward. So a handful of those guys are still jamming together. Others have done other things, but it was a project I was very passionate about. I was like 14 or 15 when I was first trying to force this thing to exist, and it was just me working with one guitarist or drummer or this or that after the other, like trying to make this thing come alive, and then finally started finding the right people to bring it to life. But at the same time, they're very individual people that have got their very different influences, and they're kind of wanting to steer a little bit this way or a little bit that way. And there's me in the middle going, no, but it's got to kind of fit in this. It's got to make sense in this world. And that was a fight. I just got tired of fighting, and I was at a point where I'm in two bands in Malignant Monster trying to force this thing that doesn't really want to be a thing, and then I'm singing for the Amenta, which I'm exercising all the things I'd be exercising over here anyway. So over here, it seems to be less there's less resistance. It just seems to work. I think the chemistry between humans was right with the Amenta, and from day one, it was just, we're on the same page. This is so weird. We're just kind of all on the same page and want to find new and interesting ways of making the listener feel really uncomfortable. Really, I think that was the kind of focal point. Was all I ever wanted to do was create sonic experiences that drag people into another world, the same way I enjoy the horror films that I grew up with. I guess is being completely just absorbed into this story and getting through that roller coaster ride, coming out the other side and going, fucking hell, that was wild. Let's do it again. And just wanting to be able to create a unique experience like that for people to step into. And I guess that was my main thing. That's kind of always been my big push. And I think that was a similar thing with the guys in the Amenta, that, you know, they're not trying to write radio hits. They're not trying to do this. They're not trying to do that. They're just guys that are obsessed with very bizarre, underground, oddball ways of assembling ideas. And so we're all kind of that same mad scientist kind of personality that's just trying to find new ways of putting things together in a way that's going to have a kind of interesting sort of dark effect on people, without just, you know, copy and pasting it from things that have been done before.
Yeah. So final question, and I have to ask it because the mobs will demand it, no doubt. Are we going to have to wait another 7 years for an Amenta record?
There have been some very serious chats about this. Don't you worry about it. No one in the band wants to do that again. It was that spending that long on one project is too fucking long. So I don't think, I just don't think any of us would have the capacity to be able to put ourselves through that bullshit again. That's too long for a single project to go on for. So how we will go about it, I don't know, but I know that 100% not one of us is ready to step into that and a hiatus like that again for the sake of one album. It's just, it's crazy. So,
and
I can't give you a deadline of when that next full length will be released, but you know, thankfully we do have Debbie Muir Morty behind us, who no doubt won't take too long before they're kind of like, you guys sort of need to get some new music going, motherfuckers. So, yeah.
I definitely do feel like it's like your time is kind of now. You know, I think with the sentiment behind Revelator, you know, a great live show. I really do hope that this is I hope that the Amenta gets the recognition that you guys deserve and have deserved for a while. But I feel like now is the right time.
Thank you so much. And August 20, there will be a release. It's not a full length album, but we've put that out there. It's happening. There is a limited edition 7-inch vinyl record that's going to be out 20th of August. Pre-orders are now available. That on one side, we've got a song which was originally from Revelator. The only reason it didn't get to stay on the album was because it was months of reworking the track listing, trying to figure out the most the way that it will make the most sense to have orders flowing from one into the other. And this song was just this oddball rebel that just didn't want to. It would make sense flowing on from this song into that song, but then the song that came after it wouldn't work, and it just didn't seem to matter which combination we reordered things. This thing was just this restless pain in the ass that would not make sense 100% anywhere that we'd sit it in the track list. So begrudgingly had to make the sort of grown-up decision of, all right, well, I think this might not be going on the album, and no one wanted to do it, but we had to be realistic at the same time. And the flow of that track list is so important to us, and it's not everyone's that picky about these things, but for us as a group, we really, that was something that was very significant to us, and we couldn't let it slide. It would be very easy to go, just whatever, you can't win them all, just chuck it in there. But we didn't. And now it's finally getting the light of day as a 7-inch. So yeah, little last minute plug there. Thank you for your patience.
I was gonna say, if you want to, if anyone wants to employ your services as a vocal coach, they can hit you up on your website.
Absolutely. Hit me up on www.caincressall.com. Very easy to get hold of. If you can't figure out how to spell my name, you can always look up the Amenta and get in touch with me through the Amenta, social media pages. Very not a hard guy to track down. So.
I was about to say a note. I said employ your services, so nobody will be asking for freebies or anything that.
I do work. So I work largely with in-studio one-on-one sessions, but I also do a lot of work with just using Skype with either international or interstate students, which is really fun. And it's so strange to think that some of the most kind of powerful connections that I've built with other creatives is actually through online vocal coaching. So there are people out there that are some of my closest kind of compadres that are out there, doing some amazing things with their own projects and stuff that I've never actually met in person. It's really strange, but it's fun.
I was about to say, it's very weird, this virtual world we're entering into, because I think about that a lot. I mean, I've made friends with the with this podcast where, it's people that I've never ever met in person, and I speak to pretty regularly. Yeah. And I regard as very good friends. Probably better friends than a lot of folks that I maybe lost touch with because of the lockdown or whatever the case may be, simply because we speak to each other more frequently. So it's a curious world we're entering into, that's for sure. But listen, brother, I thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad we finally managed to do this. And I look forward to part 2, which we'll definitely have to have at some point down the line.
Fuck yeah, bring it on. Thank you so much for having me. Into the Necrosphere. You guys fucking rule. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, brother.
Cheers.
You just listened to Twined Towers by the Amenta off of Revelator. It's a long one, but if ever there was a track that perfectly captured, I think, everything that Cain and I spoke about in terms of expressive metal vocals, that is it. And like I said at the top of the show, Revelator is without a shadow of a doubt one of my favorite records of the year so far. If you have not checked it out yet, then make sure that you do. The link to their Bandcamp will be in the description of the podcast. If you go there and you buy yourself something, they ask you who sent you, let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere. But thank you very much to Cain for coming on the show. Hopefully he will be on again at some point down the line, and just super fun catching up with him. And I really did mean what I said about him as a front man to the Amenta. No disrespect to anybody who'd been in that band previously. I've been a fan of theirs going all the way back to their first record, Acasis. But I really do believe that in Cain they've found their front man. They've found the kind of the tip of the spear of that band. And I really do hope that we're going to hear something from them sooner rather than later. So if you were paying attention to our conversation, it won't surprise you that the unsung classic that I'm going to be revisiting this week is none other than Yours in Murder by Malignant Monster. Malignant Monster, of course, featured Cain Cressall on vocals, and this was his main band prior to joining the Amenta. They put out a full-length called Foul Play in 2005 and another EP in 2012 called Prelude to Murder. And then their final record before they split up, Yours in Murder, came out in January 2013. It was released independently, which once again goes to prove my point that many record labels have been asleep on their hand for more than just the last couple of years. Now, by that point, of course, Cain was already a member of the Amenta, and they were about to release Flesh is Air a few months after that. So in some ways, Yours in Murder is kind of like one of the last opportunities you would get to hear Cain perform a more traditional style of metal. Although, that being said, I think one of the things that's a standout about Yours in Murder, almost from the off, is the fact that it kind of follows that just slightly off-axis Australian blueprint that I've spoken about on the show many times, where they sound like they should, or they definitely are part of a certain scene or a certain genre, but everything is just that kind of 10% off axis in the best possible way. And equally, as much as this record's song and album title might suggest traditional death metal, there's actually a lot more to this record. It is very much a death metal record at its core, but pretty much right from the start, you're going to hear very vivid hints of thrash, black metal, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, I think even some of Cain's traditional rock influences come out on this record as well. It informs every single riff, and those riffs, are really one of the, absolute highlights of the record. They're chunky, they're groovy. There's a ton of variety in them. They're very infectious, very memorable, and they're all set against the backdrop of Louis Rando's just absolutely astounding drumming. Sidebar to anybody who's interested, Louis Rando went on after this band to play in several other bands, including Impiety and The Furor, and that is, of course, The Furor, Furor, not The Furor. Just in case I land the band on one of Noob Heavy's terrible lists on Twitter. But Lewis's drumming, fantastic. The riffs are awesome. The glue that holds all of it together, of course, is Cain's vocals. And even though it's a little bit more limited here in terms of range than what he does on the Amenta, it suits the music perfectly. It gives the music a unique voice. It is absolutely as engaging as you would respect. And frankly, after 8 years, I don't think that this record shows any sign of aging. If it passed you by when it came out, and full transparency, it did pass me by. I actually discovered this kind of in preparation for the interview. I was kind of, for the last couple of weeks as I was getting ready to speak to him, I looked into some of the earlier stuff that he had done, and this one immediately jumped out to me after I first listened to it. But if it passed you by, it most certainly deserves your full attention right now. If not, a proper re-release by a label like Deborah Morty. So, Deborah Morty, if you guys are listening, there's gold in there. There's gold in them hills. Yeah, the record, Yours in Murder, the band Malignant Monster, my unsung classic of this week. And I know it's not exactly a weekly segment. I haven't done one of these in ages, but you can know that this is well worth your time. This is a track called Nothing Left. Nothing Left by Malignant Monster off the album Yours in Murder, came out in 2013, released independently. and that is an absolute disgrace. However, it should not stop you from checking it out. It's available on Bandcamp. It's also on Spotify and on a couple of the other streaming platforms. So make sure that you check it out. As a matter of fact, go out and buy it, and then tell Cain you heard about it on Into the Necrosphere, and insist that he get the band back together and do another record. Right, we're now going to turn to Metal Storm and do some news. And first up, we have the horrific news that the Great Old Ones drummer has quit the band. After 12 years, the Great Old Ones drummer, Leo Eisnard, has decided to quit the band. Additionally, the French black metalers already introduce Julian Diana as the permanent replacement. The Great Old Ones used to be a band that was very firmly at the top of my radar, but I didn't really like that last record they did, Cosmicism. I thought it was... I don't know, there was just something a little missing about it. EOD, or whatever the hell the previous one was called, that I thought was absolutely fantastic. This one, not so much. But the statement from the band reads, "Cultists, it's time for us to announce that Leo Eisnard decided some times ago to quit the band for professional reasons. We totally understand his choice. The Great Old Ones take a lot of time, and some jobs can't be managed with the band. We really want to thank Leo for all that he did for the Great Old Ones since the beginning. He's technical drumming, his good humor on all occasions, his unwavering friendship. The Great Old Ones wouldn't be what it is without you. All our wishes, Leo. We will miss you." In the other side, we have the pleasure to present you Julian Diana, our new drummer, who played his first show with the Great Old Ones at Hellfest from home. This 20-year-old genius has already performed an incredible performance on this occasion, and it promises great things for the future. Welcome to this new cultist, ready to pay homage to H.P. Lovecraft. 20 years old, though. That's pretty impressive. Reminds me of the young buck who's with Sepultura, and whose kind of home drumming videos that he posts on YouTube I've really been enjoying. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they do a good next record. As I said, I don't know what it was about that album. It just didn't really do anything for me. Succumb, sophomore record ready to be unleashed on September the 24th. California-based blackened death metal outfit Succumb will put out their second album. I don't know Roman numerals off the top of my head, so I'll just say XXI and sound like an idiot. The successor to 2017's self-titled debut is comprised of 8 tracks, and you can now listen to the first one, Okeanos, via Bandcamp widget below. I've not yet listened to that. I don't know Succumb, but generally speaking, American black metal is kind of the same for me as a lot of stuff that comes out of Australia, in that when I see that it is an American black metal band, I'm almost immediately interested in checking it out. I mean, there's a couple of pretty severe misses in there, but there's also a lot of really, really good stuff coming out of the States at the moment. Let's see what else. Nocturnus AD writing tunes for next full-length installment. I don't really care about that because I think that last Nocturnus AD record was bordering on the unlistenable. But speaking of old school, I got a message from Kelly Schaefer this morning of Atheist fame. His record that he was busy working on when he was on the podcast previously, I think the band was called To The Dirt. That's done, and he sent me some rough mixes to listen to, which I'm very excited about, and I definitely want him back on the podcast too. He was awesome last time. And it'll be cool to have one where we kind of just talk generally rather than talking about death metal as a whole. But so that'll definitely be happening probably in the next couple of episodes, and I will also be listening to that To The Dirt record, and I may let slip what I think of it. I liked the demos that he sent to me last time. I know there were 1 or 2 people that messaged me saying that it wasn't their cup of tea. I think it's tough when you're somebody like Kelly who has set the bar so high with Atheist. People are always going to expect something similar. It's a little bit like when Patrick Mameli did, or Patrick Mameli of Pestilence fame, I should say, for those that don't know, did C187. I actually really liked that, but Jesus, did it get fucking ravaged by critics. Anyway, the Ruins of Beverast to tour Europe with Grave Miasma. I spoke, of course, about the new Grave Miasma album. In fact, I reviewed it, I think around October or May time. Really liked it. Interesting lineup, this. They are also playing in London on the 29th of March, which is 2 days after my 42nd birthday. So I may well go check it out. But yeah, good job to Grave Miasma for getting on that tour. Fucking killer band. And that last album of theirs is definitely something that you need to check out if you have not done so yet. From killer band to a load of shit, Cradle of Filth announce and detail new full-length and launch new single. I have an extraordinary amount of love for Evan of Quell, but he told me to check out the song and said that he quite liked it. And maybe if I listen to it a couple of times, it'll grow on me. But the single is called Crawling King Chaos. I listened to it. The one thing that I cannot get past with Cradle of Filth is Danny Filth's vocals. It has always been absolutely atrocious. And honestly, it just, as he grows older, it just gets worse. So what I heard of Crawling King Chaos sounded to me like I would rather crawl on the floor and scream at the sky myself than listen to it. The album is called Existence is Futile. It is being put out on, I would imagine, Nuclear Blast. Yeah, it is. Nuclear Blast, October 22nd. But yeah, I was, I can concede that the new Iron Maiden single is excellent, and that there's, I know I've not said the nicest things about Iron Maiden, but I have to give them their due. I think it's a really good track. This one, I'm less excited about, and I don't know whether they're going to be able to convince me. I still struggle very, very much to get my head around the appeal of Cradle of Filth. I think there was about a year or two of my life when, I was into Dusk and Embrace, and I quite like Cruelty and the Beast, but God, everything else it's just abysmal. And when I go back and listen to Dusk and Embrace now, I spoke about Malignant Monster and how after 8 years it's not showing its age. Dusk and Embrace, it doesn't just show its age, it's like a fucking dementia patient running around, talking to the radio, or throwing throwing their fucking porridge at the other patients in the insane asylum. Leprous, the silent revelation single unleashed. You would think, if you didn't know them, that the fact that they're Norwegian and they're called Leprous might suggest that they're a badass black metal band, or black and death metal band. And then you see the photo of them looking like a bunch of fucking nerds and boy band members, and then you realize that the song is complete and utter trash as well, and that they are a band that are more or less unlistenable. Let's see what else. Like I said, it seems like everything is a little bit quiet at the moment. There's this band that I'm going to talk about next week that I am excited about, but beyond that, there's not really been a huge amount coming out. Toxic Ruin present video for Defiler track. I immediately started laughing because if you've watched The Sopranos, I think it's in season 2, where Christopher Moltisanti and Adriana, his girlfriend, get involved with a band called Defiler, and just I don't know why anyone would call their song that, knowing that was that particular episode was out in the ether, because it's kind of there for them to make fun of. But anyway, I listened to the song as well. It's all right. Nothing's gonna get me too excited. Green Lung drop new song. A lot of hype around this, and as soon as I listened to it, I felt compelled to switch it straight back off. The song is called The Reaper's Scythe. It's off a record called Black Harvest, and it sounds like a load of fucking nonsense. This was sad news. ZZ Top, Dusty Hill dies. Unfortunately, more sad news today. At the age of 72, the legendary bassist Dusty Hill of the iconic ZZ Top passed away in his sleep. Rest in peace. I echo those sentiments. Rest in power, Dusty. You were one of the guys that best pulled off the ZZ Top look of anybody in existence. And yeah, man, what a shame. He was old, but ZZ Top was a band that I really dug, especially when I was a young buck. And I immediately went back and listened to a whole bunch of old ZZ Top stuff. Controversially, my favorite ZZ Top song, Sleeping Bag. So I listened to that quite a few times as well. Like Sleeping Bag reminds me a little bit of ZZ Top if they were in Revolting Cocks. I think that's part of why I like it so much. Denouncement Pyre start recording new studio album. Last week, Australian black death metal operatives Denouncement Pyre have started recording sessions for their fourth studio album, the follow-up to 2016's Black Sun Unbound. Speaking of unsung classics, that is an unsung classic. Make sure, if you've not yet heard it, Black Sun Unbound, you definitely check it out. It is fucking excellent. And this is one good thing about the lockdown. It seems like it's gotten a lot of bands to, maybe bands who hadn't been talking for a while to start talking to each other. And to make some music again. So I'm looking forward to hearing what that's going to sound like. There was more sad news last week as well. Joey Jordison, formerly of Slipknot, passed away at the age of 46, which is just absolutely tragic, considering, that it's 5 years away from me. But it says here, former Slipknot drummer and the band's co-founder Joey Jordison has passed away in his sleep on July 26th. He was 46 years old. A representative of Jordison's family confirmed the news to Fox TV stations on Tuesday. We're heartbroken to share the news that Joey Jordison, prolific drummer, musician, and artist, passed away peacefully in his sleep on July 26, 2021. Joey's death has left us with empty hearts and feeling of indescribable sorrow. To those that knew Joey, understood his quick wit, his gentle personality, giant heart, and his love for all things family and music. I don't know why he passed away. I understand that he'd been struggling with a disease of some sort for a period of time. And look, part of the reason I didn't talk about this on social media was because I have never been a fan of Slipknot, but there is no getting around the fact that Joey is an absolutely incredible drummer. He is going to be very missed by a lot of people, and there's a lot of people for whom Slipknot were the gateway band into heavier things. I know there's some discussion around the circumstances under which he left Slipknot, which is not that great from a Slipknot perspective, not necessarily on Joey's side. But I know he'd been working on some other stuff, and he'd been doing some very cool stuff. There was one track, I think it was him that drummed on this. It's called Annihilation by the Hands of God. It was part of that Roadrunner United All-Stars malarkey. Top-notch effort by him there. I think he actually wrote the song as well. Very, very good stuff. As I said, I think the thing that sucks most about that is seeing somebody so young passing away. My condolences to his friends and his family. Again, I saw a lot of people on my Facebook and Instagram talking about it who knew him personally. So my condolences to them as well. Rivers of Nile announced the Work album drop first single. Reading, Pennsylvania's Rivers of Nile have never fit neatly into a box, but with 2018's Where Owls Know My Name, they transcended all labels applied to them. Returning in 2021 with the Work, they have forged further into new territory, delivering an album that is as cerebral as it is visceral, and that covers a staggering sonic range, definitely placing them in a category of their own. The Work will be released on September the 24th, and with this announcement, they have also released a video for the first single from the album titled Clean. I loved the record that came out prior to Where Owls Know My Name, but that saxophone and all that other shit that they put into Where Owls Know My Name just turned me off it completely. Let's hope that they're back with a vengeance on this one, but I remain pessimistic. Necrofire, releasing debut album in October. Texas black metal battalion Necrofire, I love that name, will be unleashing their debut full-length record, Prophecies of Eternal Darkness, onto the masses on October the 22nd by a Season of Mist underground activists. In conjunction, the band is now sharing the first single, The Black Flame Burns. Fucking badass. Along with a new official music video. The video was created by Dwayne Cathy. The name alone already suggests quality, and the fact that they're on Season of Mist also suggests that they know what time it is. So check out Necrofire if you have not yet done so already. Another tragedy, unfortunately, in the metal scene. I can't remember whether I mentioned this last week, but Mike Howe of Metal Church passed away at 55, also relatively young. I'm not sure whether they've revealed the cause of death on this one either, but it just said that the band confirmed the sad news on their Facebook page earlier today, revealing that he passed away in his California home. A cause of death hasn't been revealed. He was 55 years old. Rest in peace, Mike Howe. Again, Metal Church, never really a band that I usually got into, but yeah, sucks seeing somebody die, before their time. Right, let's see what's on Blabberpoo. Dave Mustaine shares brutal new riff from upcoming Megadeth album. If anybody saw that Woodstock 99 documentary that I spoke about, it's on HBO Max. It's called Woodstock 99, Peace, Love and Rage. They had Mustaine on moaning and throwing a couple of just snide-sounding jibes at Metallica, which I thought that the hatchet had been buried between them, but apparently not. I just think he came across as just a bitter and fucking smarmy old prick. Fred Durst's haircut steals the show during Limp Bizkit's Lollapalooza concert. He looks to me like he's trying to go for the same vibe as the Beastie Boys in Sabotage. Or in the Sabotage music video. It looks absolutely pathetic. And again, obviously, as I was talking about Woodstock 99, Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit playing key roles in that documentary. But if you want to hear more, you'll need to tune in when Lo and I get together and discuss it in detail. Kirk Hammett, Metallica was able to put all feelings and emotions and experiences of the last year and a half into new music. I've said this before, I'll say it again. It'll always be one thing with Metallica that no matter how much their new music sucks, I'll always hold out hope that there's going to be something great. And they've had blurbs of greatness come up, in their career post and Justice for All. Bleeding Me, for example, fucking phenomenal song. Probably overlooked by a lot of people because it featured on Load. But absolutely fantastic. And there's been the other odd good track, but for the most part, it's like being in a relationship where the person's not going to turn up to the dates, but you go ahead and gussy up and head to the restaurant anyway. Dave Mustaine, Megadeth's new album is almost done. Hooray! I wonder what's happening with renowned public masturbator David Ellefson. He's been conspicuously absent on social media. I am just highly relieved that there weren't any other scandal that came out of that whole sordid scenario, because it's been a productive episode for me to have him on. I don't want to have to take it down. Ted Nugent resigns from NRA board over scheduling conflicts. I don't know what sort of scheduling conflicts he would have at his age, but any hoot. Corey Taylor's wife says news of Joey Jordison's death has been heartbreaking. I'll not say too much here, other than I think one thing that I've always tried to live by, especially as I grow older, I'm kind of reminded of this more and more, because people that I think once you reach 40, people that start to pass away as well for various reasons. Just recently again, I had somebody that I didn't know all that well, but was friends of friends. I was in and around his circles when I was younger. Suddenly pass away of COVID-related complications. And it does remind you that life is short, and you can get that call at any point where somebody tells you, ever so sorry, but such and such has had a heart attack, or they've had, they suddenly passed away of a stroke in their sleep, or whatever the case may be. And I really do think that you should make a point of making sure that your relationships are where they need to be, that you said the things that you need to say. There's no point in kind of continuing petty grievances and petty squabbles and feuds with people that, you should be loving or that you do love, I should say. And then, running the risk of that call coming and feeling like there were things left unsaid, or there were, bridges that had been burned that shouldn't have been. And I don't want to get sentimental or anything, or sound like I'm preaching to any of y'all, but I really do make a point of that, and I think something like that. God knows I don't know the full story of why he left Slipknot, but if it's sincere what Alicia Taylor is saying, I think a lot of those folks from Slipknot may potentially be dealing with some pretty serious guilt now. Phil Anselmo and all the guys from Pantera, another great example. I mean, I know he tried to mend fences before Vinny passed away, but I think he will also live for a long time with the guilt of everything that preceded that. And that's not a good place to be. Life is too short for that, and I believe in controlling what we can control. And I certainly try from my side to always control as best I can, things that are within my gift to do. I think, folks, that is more or less it. Well, actually, let's end on a positive note. Exodus drummer Tom Hunting. It's presumptuous to say I'm cancer-free at this point. He has been, it does seem like he's doing really well. So let's see what he says here. Exodus drummer Tom Hunting says it's presumptuous to say he is already cancer-free more than 2 weeks after he underwent a successful gastrectomy in his battle with squamous cell carcinoma of the stomach. Hunting offered a clarification regarding his health response to a July 26 Instagram post from his Exodus bandmate Gary Holt, who referred to the drummer as now being cancer-free after his surgery. Earlier today, Hunting released the following statement via Holt's Instagram. Hello, y'all. I just want to thank everybody for taking part in the Blind Illusion Benefit Show in Sacramento for Tom. I'm blown away by all the love and support from everyone in this community. It really propels me in this fight. So I had a full gastrectomy on July 12th. I've been healing up good, relearning my relationship with food, some smaller portions, more spaced out, lots of proteins, etc. The science of all of this continues to blow my mind on a daily basis. Like, how can someone even be walking around after 2 weeks of surgery, or 2 weeks after surgery? Ha ha. Anyway, I'm super thankful. I've learned that so many people don't even get a surgical option. The doctors had a good plan. They went in and they've told me they've got it all. Fuck yes, sounds good to me. It's presumptuous to say I'm cancer-free at this point. I really hope to make that statement myself soon down the road, but let's not jinx it. I'm still in the middle of this fight. The hardest part is over, with still 4 outro chemo treatments pending. After that, I'll have another scan that'll hopefully show that that cancer's ass has been evicted from my body and kicked down the road. I really hope that is the case, and I'm very, very happy to hear that at least things are on the up and up as far as Tom is concerned. Like I said, at the time, I spent an evening on the booze with him and with Gary, and could not meet nicer guys. He's a fucking great drummer as well. I know he's a beloved figure in the scene, and like I said, very, very glad to hear that he's doing well. And like I said, on that note, it is the news done for this week. That also brings me to the end of another episode of Into the Necrosphere. Thank you very much to everybody who tuned in. Thank you so much to my guest, Cain Cressall. Make sure that you check out his website if you're a vocalist and you want to take your game to the next level. Bear in mind, no freebies. Although I think everyone who listens to the show is hopefully gainfully employed. But yeah, check it out. Also check out that Amenta record, Revelator, out now on Deborah Morty Productions. Go back in the archives and check out Malignant Monster as well. I want to finish off with a song that Cain and I spoke about during the course of our conversation. This is a track called Void. It is off the I believe it was an EP called Chokehold. Absolutely phenomenal tune. Has one of my favorite lyrical pieces in as well, which you're going to hear if you stick around until the very end of this particular episode. So on that note, I'm going to bid you all a fond farewell. I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week. This is the Amenta with Void.